I always knew I wasn't her first choice, but I kept pretending I was. Her name was Ava Mitchell, and for 3 years, I built my life around her like she was the center of everything. Every plan, every decision, every late-night conversation, it all came back to her, and somehow, I still wasn't enough, because there was always someone else, Ethan Cole. I still remember the first time I heard his name. "Ava, who's Ethan?" I asked one evening as we sat in a small cafe. She didn't look up from her phone. "Just someone I used to know." "Used to?" I pressed. She smiled slightly. "Don't overthink it." But I did. Because every time his name came up, something in her changed. Her voice softened, her attention drifted, and I felt like I was slowly disappearing. A few weeks later, he showed up again. And we were walking through the city when Ava suddenly stopped. "Ethan?" she said. I turned. He stood across the street like he had stepped out of a completely different world. Expensive clothes, confident posture, that effortless kind of presence I could never fake. He smiled at her. "Ava." She let go of my hand. That was the first sign. I should have walked away right then. Instead, I stood there like I belonged in a moment that clearly wasn't mine. Ethan glanced at me briefly. "And you are?" "Daniel," I said. He nodded like he'd already forgotten my name. "Nice to meet you." It didn't feel like he meant it. Ava stepped closer to him. "How have you been?" she asked. "Busy," he replied. "You?" "Same." But her voice was lighter than I had heard in weeks. I cleared my throat. "We should get going." Ava didn't move. "I'll catch up with you later," she said. I stared at her. "What?" "Just go ahead. I'll meet you at home." Home. The word sounded hollow. "You're serious?" She avoided my eyes. "It's just a quick conversation." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'll make sure she gets back safe." Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. I looked at Ava. "You're really choosing this?" "It's not like that." "It feels like that." She sighed. "Daniel, don't make this complicated." I let out a quiet laugh. It already is. But I still walked away. That was my mistake. Because it didn't happen just once. It became a pattern. Whenever Ethan came back into her life, Ava drifted away from me. Her texts became shorter. Her calls became less frequent. Her attention disappeared. And when he disappeared again, she came back. Like nothing had happened. "I just need time," she would say. "Time for what? Time to decide between me and him? Time to figure out who was more convenient?" I never asked, because I was afraid of the answer. One night, I finally said it out loud. We were sitting in my apartment, the silence heavier than usual. "Ava," I said, "what are we?" She looked up from her phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean us." She frowned. "We're together." "Are we?" "Of course." "Then why does it feel like I'm temporary?" She sighed. "You're overthinking again." "No," I said quietly. "I'm noticing." She didn't respond. I leaned forward. "When he comes back, you disappear." "That's not true." "It is." She looked annoyed now. "Ethan is just part of my past." "Then why does he still feel like your future?" That question hung between us. For a moment, I thought she might answer honestly. Instead, she stood up. "I don't want to fight." "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm asking." "Well, I don't have an answer right now." Of course she didn't. She never did, because deep down, I already knew the truth. I wasn't her choice. I was her backup plan. The person she came back to when things with Ethan didn't work. The one who stayed, the one who waited, the one who always forgave, until the night everything finally broke. It was a rooftop party. Music, lights, laughter, the city glowing beneath us. The kind of place where people celebrated success and pretended everything in their lives was perfect. I didn't want to go. But Ava insisted. "It'll be fun," she said. "It never is," I replied. "Just come with me." So I did. And the moment we stepped onto that rooftop, I knew I shouldn't have, because he was there. Ethan Cole, standing near the edge, drink in hand, surrounded by people who looked just as confident as he did. Ava saw him instantly. Of course she did. "Daniel," she started. "Go," I said. She hesitated for half a second. Then she walked toward him. I watched her go, again. I stayed back, pretending to check my phone, pretending I didn't care. But every laugh I heard from her direction felt like a reminder. You don't belong here. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked over. Ava stood beside Ethan, laughing like I didn't exist, like I had never existed. I stepped in front of them. Ava? She turned, slightly surprised. Oh, hey. Hey, that's what I got. Ethan looked at me with mild curiosity. Daniel. To right? Yeah. He nodded slowly. Good to see you again. It's not mutual, I said. Ava frowned. Daniel. No, I cut her off. I'm done pretending. Ethan raised an eyebrow. This sounds serious. It is. I looked directly at Ava. Tell me the truth. About what? About us. She crossed her arms. What do you want me to say? I want you to stop lying. I'm not lying. Then why am I always second? Her expression hardened. That's not fair. Then what is it? Silence. People around us started to notice. The music kept playing, but everything else felt distant. I took a step closer. Do you love him? Ava didn't answer. That was answer enough. Ethan smirked slightly. That's a complicated question. I ignored him. Ava. She looked at me, and for the first time, and there was no softness left in her eyes, only honesty. Cold, sharp honesty. I never promised you forever, she said. The words hit harder than anything else. No apology, no hesitation, just truth. I felt something inside me finally break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, completely. I nodded slowly. You're right. Ava looked confused. What? You never did. Ethan watched silently now. I took a step back. For 3 years, I had chased her, waited for her, hoped she would choose me. But standing there under those lights, watching her stand beside someone else, I realized something simple. She already had. And it wasn't me. I let out a slow breath. Then I said the words I never thought I would. I'm done. Ava blinked. Daniel, no. My voice was calm, steady, stronger than I felt. Done being your second choice. She stared at me. You're overreacting. I shook my head. No, I said quietly. For the first time, I'm not. I turned away. And this time, I didn't wait for her to stop me, because something inside me had finally changed. For the first time in 3 years, I stopped chasing her. The hardest thing I ever did was nothing. No calls, no messages, no late night I miss you texts I would regret in the morning. Just silence. The first day after the rooftop party felt unreal. I woke up, grabbed my phone, and stared at the screen. No notifications, no messages from Ava. I laughed quietly. Of course, I muttered. For a moment, my fingers hovered over her name. I could fix this. I could text her, ask her to talk, explain things, try again, like I always did. But then I heard my own voice from that night. I'm done. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the bed. No, I said out loud. Not this time. That decision, that simple act of doing nothing, was the hardest thing I had ever done. By the third day, it got worse. I sat in my apartment, pacing back and forth. Just one message, I whispered to myself, just to see if she's okay. I picked up my phone again, then I stopped. No, I said more firmly, she's fine. The truth was, I wasn't worried about her. I was addicted to her, to the routine, to the hope that maybe this time she would choose me. And breaking that addiction felt like tearing something out of my chest. That's when Ryan showed up. He knocked twice, then walked in without waiting. You look terrible, he said. Thanks. He looked around the messy apartment. You've been like this for 3 days? Something like that. Ryan crossed his arms. You called her? No. Texted? No. He nodded slowly. Good. I frowned. That's your reaction? What did you expect? He replied. You want a medal for doing the bare minimum? I sighed. It doesn't feel like the bare minimum. It feels like hell, doesn't it? Yeah. Ryan sat down on the couch. Because you've been living for her. I leaned against the wall. That's not true. He raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes. Then tell me the last decision you made that didn't involve Ava. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Ryan smirked slightly. Exactly. I looked away. That doesn't mean... It means everything, he interrupted. You built your life around someone who never chose you. His words hit harder than I expected. You're being harsh. I'm being honest. I rubbed my face. So what do I do now? Ryan leaned forward. Start living for yourself. The sentence sounded simple, but it felt impossible. What does that even mean? It means you stop waiting, he said. You stop chasing. Yeah, and you stop asking for attention. And then you figure out who you are without her. I let out a slow breath. That sounds complicated. Ryan smiled. No, it's just uncomfortable. He stood up. Get dressed. Why? We're going out. I don't feel like it. Exactly why we're going. An hour later, we were sitting in a small cafe across town. Not the one Ava and I used to go to. A different one. A fresh start, Ryan called it. He sipped his coffee and looked at me. So, he said, what do you actually want? I shrugged. I don't know. Good. How is that good? Because for once, the answer isn't about her. I stared at my cup. I guess I want to do better. Better how? Work, life, everything. Ryan nodded. Then start there. And I did. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into work. Long hours, extra projects, things I used to avoid because I was too busy worrying about Ava. Now I had nothing to distract me, so I worked. And slowly, something changed. I felt focused, driven, alive in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. One afternoon, my manager called me into a meeting. There's someone I want you to meet, he said. Who? A project manager from another division. I walked into the conference room and saw her standing by the table. Confident posture, sharp eyes, focused energy. She looked up as I entered. You must be Daniel. That's me. She extended her hand. Sophia Lane. I shook it. Nice to meet you. She studied me for a moment, then smiled slightly. I've heard about you. I raised an eyebrow. Good things, I hope. Mixed, she said honestly. I laughed. That sounds about right. She gestured toward the chair. Sit. I sat down across from her. She opened a file and slid it toward me. I'm leading a new project, she said, and I need someone who can handle pressure. Why me? She looked directly at me. Because you've been underperforming for months. And suddenly, your numbers improved. I blinked. That's one way to put it. What changed? I hesitated. Personal reasons. She nodded. Breakup? I looked at her, surprised. Is it that obvious? Yes. I leaned back in my chair. Fair enough. She tapped the file. Whatever happened, it pushed you. It did. Good. I frowned. Good? Pain is useful, she said calmly. If you use it right. That was the first time I had heard someone say that without sympathy. No pity, just truth. She leaned forward slightly. I don't care about your past, she continued. I care about what you do now. I nodded slowly. I can do the job. I know, she said. You sound confident. I am. She closed the file. You're better than you think. The words caught me off guard. Not because they were dramatic, but because they felt real, simple, direct. And for the first time in a long time, someone wasn't comparing me to anyone else. Not to Ethan. Not to some ideal version of who I should be. Just me. I stood up. So, when do we start? Sophia smiled slightly. Tomorrow. As I walked out of that room, something felt different. Lighter. Clearer. I checked my phone. Still no messages from Ava. And for the first time, I didn't care. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. That night, Ryan called me. So, he said, did you survive the day? More than that? Oh? I think I'm starting to figure things out. Ryan laughed. About time. I smiled. Yeah. He paused. So, what changed? I thought about it for a moment. Then I answered honestly. For the first time in years, I'm not trying to be someone's second choice. Ryan nodded. Good. I looked out the window at the city lights. And for the first time, I continued. Someone chose me first. Months passed, not days, not weeks, months. And somewhere in that time, without even realizing it at first, I changed. It didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic moment, no sudden breakthrough, just small decisions. Every day, show up, work harder, think bigger, move forward, and slowly. Those small decisions became a different life. It started with the project I took on with Sophia. What began as a routine assignment turned into something more. Late nights turned into strategy sessions. Ideas turned into plans. Plans turned into something real. "You're thinking too small," Sophia said one night as we stood in front of a whiteboard filled with notes. "I'm being realistic." "You're being safe," she corrected. I crossed my arms. "And what's wrong with that?" She looked at me directly. "Everything. If you want to build something that matters." That stuck with me. For years I had played it safe. In my career, in my relationship, in my life, always afraid to lose what little I had. But I had already lost it, so what was I protecting anymore? The next day, I made a decision. "Let's build it," I told her. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" "Yeah." "You understand the risk?" "I do." She smiled slightly. "Good." That's how it started. A small idea, a risky one, something most people would have ignored, but we didn't. Ryan was the first person I told. "You're starting a company?" he asked. "Yeah." He stared at me for a second, then he grinned. Finally. "That's your reaction?" "What, you want me to panic?" he said. "This is the first real decision you've made for yourself." I laughed. "Fair point." He leaned forward. "What do you need?" "Everything," I admitted. "Good," Ryan said. "Then let's get to work." And we did. The early days were messy, uncertain, long hours, tight budgets, constant pressure. There were moments I thought about quitting, moments where the old version of me would have walked away. But I didn't. Because this time, I wasn't doing it for someone else. I was doing it for me. Sophia became more than just a project manager. She became my partner in every sense of the word. Strategy, decisions, execution. Where I hesitated, she pushed. Where I doubted, she focused. "You're overthinking again," she said one afternoon. "I'm analyzing." "You're stalling." I sighed. "What if it fails?" She didn't hesitate. "And then we learn." "That's it?" "That's enough." Her confidence was different from anything I had seen before. It wasn't loud. It wasn't arrogant. It was steady, unshaken, and slowly. It started affecting me. Weeks turned into months. The idea grew. We launched. At first, no one noticed. Then a few people did. Then more. And suddenly, things started moving fast. We secured our first small investor, then another. Then one meeting changed everything. "Daniel," Sophia said, walking into my office, "we have a meeting tomorrow." "With who?" She placed a file on my desk. "Daniel Ross." I looked up. "The Daniel Ross?" "The one and only." I let out a breath. "He doesn't meet with startups like ours." "He does now." The next day, I walked into one of the most important meetings of my life. Daniel Ross sat at the head of the table, calm and unreadable. He glanced at our presentation, then at me. "Convince me," he said simply. No small talk, no introductions, just that. I spoke, not perfectly, not confidently at first, but honestly, about the idea, the vision, the risk, and why it mattered. For the first time, I wasn't trying to impress someone. I was showing them who I was. When I finished, the room went quiet. Daniel Ross leaned back slightly, then he nodded. "I'm interested." That was it. 2 words, but they changed everything. After that, things accelerated. Funding came in, opportunities opened, people started paying attention, not because of who I was with, not because of who I knew, but because of what I had built. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't second. I wasn't waiting. I was moving forward. One evening, months later, I stood in our new office, city lights reflecting through the glass windows. Ryan walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Not bad," he said, looking around. "Not bad at all." I took the cup from him. "Feels unreal." "That's because a few months ago, you were crying over someone who didn't deserve you." I smirked. "When you say it like that..." "Because it's true," he said. "Look at you now." I leaned against the desk. "Yeah." I paused. "It's different." Ryan nodded. "You're different." Before I could respond, the office door opened. Sophia walked in. We have a problem, she said. What kind? She hesitated for a second. Someone's here to see you. At this hour? She nodded. I frowned. Who? Sophia looked at me carefully. Then she said the one name I hadn't heard in months. Ava. Everything went still. For a brief moment, the past tried to pull me back. The memories, the pain, the version of me who used to wait. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. Is she alone? I asked. Yes. I took a slow breath. Okay. Ryan watched me closely. You want me to stay? I shook my head. No. He nodded. Then I'll be right outside. Sophia stepped aside as I walked toward the meeting room. Each step felt steady, controlled, not heavy like before, not uncertain, just calm. I opened the door, and there she was, Ava Mitchell, standing in the middle of the room. But something was different. Her posture, her expression, her confidence. It was all gone. She turned when she heard the door. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I noticed it. She wasn't smiling, not even a little. For the first time since I had known her, Ava looked unsure, and that's when I realized something. The girl I once chased was now standing in front of someone she no longer recognized. Daniel, she said softly. I didn't move, didn't step forward, didn't step back, just stood there, calm, unshaken. Hi, Ava. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't the same man she had left behind. Ava stood in my office like she didn't belong there, and maybe she didn't, not anymore. I made a mistake, she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered, careful, measured, like she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. I leaned back slightly, studying her. This was the same woman who once looked at me with certainty that I would always stay, always wait, always forgive. Now, there was hesitation in her eyes. I didn't realize what I had, she continued. I didn't respond immediately, because I had imagined this moment before, 100 different versions of it. What I would say, how I would react, how it would feel. But standing here now, it felt different, quieter, less emotional, almost distant. I walked past her and placed my phone on the desk. Why are you here, Ava? She turned toward me. I wanted to see you. That's not a reason. She hesitated. I wanted to talk. We're talking. She swallowed. Daniel, please don't do this. I raised an eyebrow. Do what? Act like I'm just anyone. I let out a quiet breath. That's exactly what you are now. The words landed harder than I expected. Her expression shifted, pain flashing across her face. I'm not just anyone, she said softly. You used to be, I replied. Silence filled the room, heavy, unavoidable. She took a small step closer. I know I hurt you. That's an understatement. I was confused. No, I said calmly. You were certain. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I continued. You were certain I wasn't enough. That's not true. It is, I said. You just didn't say it out loud. She looked down. I thought I needed something more. More what? More stability, more success, more certainty about the future. I nodded slowly. So you chose him. She didn't deny it. I thought he could give me that. And now? Her voice dropped. I was wrong. I studied her for a moment. And what changed? She looked up at me. You did. I almost laughed. No, I said. I didn't change for you. I know, she replied quickly. That's the point. That made me pause for a brief second. Then I asked the question that mattered. What happened to Ethan? Her expression tightened. It didn't work out. That's vague. She hesitated. Then she said it. His business started failing. I said nothing. He made some bad investments, she continued. Things spiraled fast. Investors pulled out. People started talking. His reputation? I asked. Damaged, she admitted. I nodded slowly. And when things got difficult, she closed her eyes briefly. I realized I made the wrong choice. There it was. Not love, not regret, clarity after loss. I walked around the desk and leaned against it, crossing my arms. So, let me get this straight, I said. When he was winning, you chose him. Her eyes filled with emotion. And now that he's losing? I'm not like that, she said quickly. I held her gaze. Aren't you? She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Because we both knew the truth. I came here because of you, she said after a moment. Not because of him. Then why now? I asked. Why not months ago? I needed time. I shook my head slightly. No. You needed proof. Her brows furrowed. Well, how proof of what? That I was worth choosing. That's not fair. It's accurate. She stepped closer again, her voice breaking slightly. I see you now, Daniel. I didn't move. You built something incredible, she continued. You changed your life. You became someone valuable, I finished. She hesitated. Yes. I let out a quiet breath. And that's when you decided I mattered. That's not what I'm saying. It is, I said calmly. You just don't want it to sound that way. Tears formed in her eyes. I loved you. I looked at her, carefully. Maybe you did, I said, in your own way. Her voice trembled. I still do. That sentence, once it would have meant everything. Now, it felt like something that belonged to a different life, a different version of me. I straightened slightly. Ava, I said quietly, do you know what the difference is between then and now? She shook her head. Back then, I would have done anything to hear you say that. Her breath caught. And now? She asked. I held her gaze. Now it doesn't change anything. The silence that followed was heavy. Final. She took a step back like the words had physically pushed her. I thought... She started, then stopped. What? I thought maybe we could start again. I almost smiled, not out of humor, but because of how familiar that sounded. I used to hope for that too, I said. Her eyes searched mine. And now? I shook my head. No. Just one word. But it carried everything. All the waiting, all the disappointment, all the nights I chose her while she chose someone else. Her voice broke. Is there really no chance? I didn't hesitate. No. Ava. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I lost you, didn't I? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, she hadn't just lost me. She lost the version of me who would have stayed. And that version was gone. Yes, I said finally. She nodded slowly, as if accepting something she had been avoiding for a long time. I understand. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she turned toward the door. Her steps were slower than before, heavier, as if every step carried the weight of realization. She stopped just before leaving. Daniel... I didn't respond. She looked back one last time. I really did love you. I met her eyes, and for the first time, I believed her, but it didn't matter anymore. Goodbye, Ava. She held my gaze for a second longer. Then she walked out. The door closed softly behind her. And just like that, it was over. Not with anger, not with regret, but with clarity. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then Ryan walked in. Well, he asked. I exhaled slowly. It's done. He studied my face. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. And I meant it, because the truth was simple. Ava didn't come back because she loved me more. She came back because life showed her what she lost. But by the time she realized it, I had already become someone she could no longer reach. And for the first time, I didn't feel like her second choice. I felt like someone who finally chose himself. Ava didn't leave that easily. I should have expected that. Some people only fight harder when they realize they're losing something for real. The door had barely closed behind her the first time before it opened again. Daniel, wait. I looked up. She was still there, still holding on. I let out a slow breath. Ava. We already said everything that needed to be said. No, she said quickly. We didn't. Her voice was more urgent now, less controlled, like she was running out of time. I stayed silent. She stepped closer. Can we start over? There it was. The question I once dreamed of hearing. The one I used to imagine late at night, thinking maybe one day she would realize my worth and come back. For a moment, I just looked at her, not as the woman I loved, but as the person standing in front of me now. Someone who had already made her choice once. Someone who only came back after everything else fell apart. I took a deep breath. There was a time I would have said yes without thinking. A time when her words would have been enough to erase everything. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. I can't do that, I said calmly. Her expression cracked. Why not? I tilted my head slightly. You really don't know. Because I made a mistake, she said. People make mistakes, Daniel. I nodded slowly. They do. Then why can't we fix it? Because this isn't something you fix. She shook her head, frustration building. You're acting like I never cared about you. I'm not saying that. Then what are you saying? I held her gaze. I'm saying you didn't choose me. Her eyes filled again. I'm choosing you now. I almost smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's the problem, she frowned. I don't understand. I straightened slightly. Ava, I was never your second choice. She looked confused for a second, then I continued. I was your backup plan. The words landed heavily between us. Her shoulders dropped. Her gaze fell to the floor. And for the first time, she didn't argue, didn't defend herself, didn't try to twist the truth, because she couldn't. Because deep down, she knew it was true. I waited for you, I said quietly, more times than I should have. She swallowed hard. I know. I stayed when you left, I continued. I forgave when you didn't deserve it. Her hands trembled slightly. I didn't realize... I know, I interrupted gently. That's the point. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. You only realized when it was too late. A tear slipped down her cheek. I was scared, she whispered. Of what? Of ending up with nothing. I nodded slowly. And so you chose what looked like more. She didn't deny it. I thought I was making the right decision. For yourself, I said. Her voice broke. I didn't think I would lose you. That sentence said everything. I looked at her carefully. You didn't think you had to choose, I said, because you thought I would always be there. She closed her eyes. I was wrong. Yes, I said quietly. You were. She took a shaky breath, but I'm here now. I shook my head. That's not enough. Her eyes snapped open. Why? Because I deserve more than that? She stepped closer again. I can give you more. I held up a hand, stopping her. No. Oh, Ava. My voice was still calm, but firm. I deserve someone who chooses me first. The words echoed in the room. Clear, final. And that's not you. It hurt her. I could see it. The way her expression broke, the way her shoulders slumped, the way her eyes searched mine for something, anything that might change my mind. But there was nothing left to give. Tears filled her eyes completely now. So that's it? She asked. I nodded. That's it. She wiped her face, trying to steady herself. I never thought it would end like this. I gave a small, almost sad smile. It ended a long time ago, I said. We just didn't accept it. She looked down again. For a long moment, she said nothing, and for the first time since I had known her, she had no words, no arguments, no explanations, just silence. I stepped back slightly, creating distance, not just physically, but emotionally, completely. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. She let out a broken laugh. I thought it was you. I didn't respond, because that wasn't true. If it had been, she wouldn't have left. She nodded slowly, as if answering her own thoughts. Yeah, she whispered. I guess it wasn't. Another tear fell, but this time, I didn't move, didn't step forward, didn't reach out, didn't try to comfort her, because that wasn't my role anymore, and maybe it never should have been. She turned toward the door, each step slower than the last, like she was forcing herself to accept something she didn't want to believe. Her hand rested on the handle. She paused. Daniel, I stayed silent. I'm sorry, she said softly. I closed my eyes for a brief second, then opened them again. I know. That was all. No anger, no forgiveness, just acknowledgement. She nodded as if that was the only thing she deserved. Then she opened the door and walked out. This time, She didn't come back. The door closed, and the room fell into silence again. But it felt different now. Not heavy, not painful, just still. I stood there for a moment, then walked over to the window. The city stretched out in front of me, bright, alive, full of movement, full of possibility. Ryan stepped in quietly. "She gone?" he asked. "Yeah." "For good?" I nodded. "For good." He studied me for a second. "You okay?" I took a deep breath, then exhaled slowly. "Yeah." And this time, there was no hesitation, because the truth was simple. I didn't lose her. I let her go, and for the first time in my life, I chose myself. A year later, everything was different. Not in the loud, dramatic way people imagine when they think about success, but in the quiet, undeniable way life changes when you finally become the person you were meant to be. The company had grown beyond anything I once thought possible. What started as a risky idea on a whiteboard had turned into something real, something strong. We had a full team now, investors, recognition, momentum that didn't slow down. People who once overlooked me now waited for meetings with me, but the biggest change wasn't the company. It was me. I no longer woke up wondering if I was enough. I didn't check my phone hoping someone would choose me. I didn't measure my worth through someone else's attention. That version of me was gone. And in his place stood someone steady, someone certain. Someone who didn't need validation to feel valuable. Ryan noticed it first. Of course he did. He always did. We were sitting in the office lounge late one evening, the city glowing outside the glass walls. He tossed me a bottle of water. "You're different," he said. I caught it. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he nodded. "You don't hesitate anymore." I leaned back slightly. "I used to hesitate a lot." "You used to overthink everything," he corrected. "That too," he smirked. "Now you just decide and move." I thought about it. He wasn't wrong, because I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of losing someone, not of making the wrong choice, not of ending up alone, because I had already faced all of that and survived. "I guess I just stopped waiting," I said. Ryan nodded. "Exactly." Later that night, I stood in my office. The lights were dim, the city stretched endlessly beyond the glass windows, cars moving, buildings glowing, life continuing. I used to look at views like this and feel small, like I was just another person trying to keep up. Now, I felt like I belonged in it, like I had built my place here. The door opened softly behind me. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. "Sophia." "You're still here," she said. "So are you." She walked over, stopping beside me. For a moment, we just stood there in silence. Comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. "You've come a long way," she said. I smiled slightly. "Yeah." But it wasn't pride that I felt. Not the kind that needed to prove anything. Not the kind that wanted recognition. It was something quieter, something deeper. Peace. Not because I proved Ava wrong, but because I finally proved myself right. I turned slightly toward Sophia. "You know what's funny?" I said. "What?" "For the longest time, I thought I needed someone else to choose me." She looked at me, listening. "I thought that's what made me valuable. And now?" I exhaled softly. "Now I know that was never true." She smiled faintly. "It never is." I looked back at the city. I spent years thinking I was second. The words felt distant now, like they belonged to someone else. "But I wasn't," I continued. "I just didn't believe I was first." Sophia crossed her arms lightly. "That changes everything." "It does." Because once that belief shifted, everything else followed. The way I worked, the way I spoke, the way I carried myself, people noticed. Not because I demanded attention, but because I no longer needed it, and that made all the difference. Sophia glanced at me. "So," she said casually, "any regrets?" I thought about it, about the past, about Ava, about everything that had happened. All the waiting, all the disappointment, all the moments I felt like I wasn't enough. Then I shook my head. No. Because without those moments, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't have grown. And I wouldn't have understood the most important thing, that your value isn't decided by who stays, or who leaves, or who comes back. It's decided by what you believe about yourself. Sophia nodded, as if she understood exactly what I meant. She always did. You know, she said after a moment, most people never figure that out. I almost didn't. But you did. I smiled slightly. Yeah. Another quiet moment passed. Then she spoke again. And now? I glanced at her. What about now? She held my gaze. What do you want next? The question was simple, but the answer was different now. Not shaped by fear, not shaped by insecurity, not shaped by the need to prove anything, just clear. I want to keep building, I said. Keep growing. She nodded. And? I hesitated for a second, then added honestly, I want something real. Her expression softened slightly. Real is good. It is. Because I had already experienced what wasn't real, what looked right on the surface but lacked substance underneath. I wasn't interested in that anymore. Not in business, not in life, not in relationships. I looked at her for a moment longer, and in that moment, I realized something. Sophia had been there through everything, the growth, the struggle, the rebuilding. She didn't come back when things got better. She was there when things were uncertain, when there were no guarantees, when choosing me wasn't the obvious decision, and that meant something real. She noticed my silence. What? She asked. I shook my head slightly. Nothing. But I smiled. Because for the first time, I understood the difference. The difference between being chosen when it's easy and being chosen when it's not. And that difference was everything. I turned back to the window. The city lights stretched endlessly ahead, full of opportunity, full of life, full of choices. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was chasing anything. I wasn't trying to catch up. I wasn't trying to be enough. I already was. I was never someone's second option, I said quietly. Sophia glanced at me. No, she replied, you weren't. I let out a slow breath. I just needed to believe it. She smiled. And once you did? I looked out at the city one last time and answered with complete certainty. The world started choosing me first.